Hello guys, and two more thermal power plants are off in the frontline regions of the Russian Federation, in Bryansk and Belgorod. These territories are actively used by the Russian army for the transportation and logistics, and to perform all of that in complete darkness is more difficult. But another important strike took place far away from the front lines, actually deep inside the Russian area, more than 1,300 kilometers from Ukraine, in Tyumen, where we destroyed another Russian refinery, oil refinery, which brings us close to half of the Russian refineries destroyed by Ukrainian drones. And this only fuels the fuel crisis inside the Russian Federation and means not enough gasoline in the country that was once a gas station, even for driving cars to work. And all comes in the context when even the popular newspapers report serious problems with the aircraft inside Russia. Aeroflot needs to cannibalize more and more of their planes to be able to perform at least some of the flights in Russia that with each day turns into a larger and larger no-fly zone. So after 3.5 years of Putin's failed blitzkrieg, we may speak about lots of Russian regions that are in the darkness, with no gasoline, with no cars driving on the roads and no planes flying in the skies. That's the only way to end this war, to defeat and demilitarize Russia. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see Putin in The Hague and justice served to the Kremlin criminals, subscribe. We will discuss that on the channel sometime really soon, and please spread these videos among your friends and loved ones, share and push that notification bell. So let's begin with this very important demilitarization in Bryansk and Belgorod regions. These are frontline regions of the Russian Federation. They wanted war and they invited it to lots of different parts of the Russian Federation. Now, the size of the Russian Federation does not save it more as it was previously, but Belgorod, Kursk, Bryansk, Voronezh, Rostov are often in the headlines. And this night, two thermal power plants were targeted, maybe by drones, maybe by Ukrainian homemade cruise missiles, Flamingos, which resulted in the darkness. The darkness not just in Belgorod and Bryansk, but also the adjacent regions, because these thermal plants were huge and supplied big territories with the electricity. These are territories actively used by the Russian military production, the Russian army, plus that is also a very loud message to the population of the Russian Federation that you don't want this war. Unfortunately, they still speak about the need to, destroy all of Ukraine, forgetting about one important fact: Russia is already failing and the whole world witnesses this. Russians act very differently from Ukrainians. When we first experienced blackouts in 2022, we were, of course, frightened. It was very difficult, but we quickly changed the attitude, bought the generators, and literally after a couple of weeks, you could visit shops, you could buy mulled wine on the dark streets of the Ukrainian cities because we understand that we need to adapt, we need to fight, and we need to defeat the Kremlin. That's the only way for us to survive. In Russia, they act differently. They just describe the consequences and blame Putin or Ukrainians. That's not the way to end this war, and perhaps some visits of the Ukrainian drones to other military facilities will continue, and specifically to various oil refineries. Russians already have maps of the destroyed oil refineries that they share on social media, and most importantly, they have maps of the working gas stations. More than 50 regions inside the Russian Federation are influenced by shortages. In many regions, they introduced ratios, so the destruction of one more in Tyumen, 1,300 kilometers away from the Ukrainian border, only adds problems to the Russian oil and gasoline market. Actually, the Kremlin discusses the possibility to sell raw oil to China and then to buy gasoline from China back to Russia, and that is perhaps another way to destroy their budget and their economy even faster. So thumbs up for that, and subscribe if you are new to the channel. Actually, more and more people inside Russia, including the military, including the vloggers, are dissatisfied with the Kremlin's failures and speak openly about that. And I tell you more in my new record-breaking video on the new channel Anna Danilchuk that I connect here. Do check it if you haven't, and of course share everything that you like and agree with. So in this context of constantly exploding oil refineries, blackouts in different parts of the Russian Federation, with gasoline crisis, we also observe problems with the Russian Aeroflot that many of you beautiful people name Aeroflot. And I think it beautifully describes the situation in which it is now. Once again, before the start of the full-scale invasion, Russia was okay. It was never a healthy democratic country, but it was totally safe, and they had enough of oil, enough of gasoline, and could fly wherever they wanted. But when they decided they can invade Ukraine in 3 days, they made the greatest mistake ever and actually started the process of the dissolution of the Russian Federation that we actively witness together right now. Trust me, I'm a Ukrainian, born a couple of years before the collapse of the USSR, and I can sense, I can recognize these very similar signs to the economy, to products, to prices, and even to attitudes that was just before the collapse of the USSR. And definitely the situation with aircraft. First of all, Russians cannot fly in dozens of their regions, in particular in this European part of the Russian Federation. And for Putin, Moscow, St. Petersburg, these are the cities that he considers real cities, and the rest of the Russian Federation is just the fund for his resources, for looting and stealing, just as they did in some of Ukrainian regions. That's exactly what they do to various republics with the great potential to become independent. And that's actually why we witness more and more protests in the far east of Russia, in Sakha, in Altai. And I speak about that more on the channel in different videos when something appears. And recently there were protests in Altai. So, but this European part of Russia is extremely vulnerable, and there is nothing they can do. Every week, Moscow, St. Petersburg, and dozens of other regions like Sochi, Putin's favorite residence, turn into a no-fly zone. But taking into account the quality of the Russian aircraft, the inability to repair them, the no maintenance at all, we actually save Russian lives when we turn Russia into a no-fly zone. Because would you like to fly a Russian aircraft that was cannibalized and actually consists of different parts taken from very different jets that may not go well together? To tell you the truth, I believe it's safer to stay inside Russia and to wait for Ukraine, I don't know, to defeat the Kremlin regime. Of course, it would be way easier if the Russian population participated themselves, but I do not expect that from such a traumatized population, not yet society, maybe 50 years after the defeat of the Kremlin regime. And many people report inside Ukraine and even inside Russia that a lot of explosions in different parts of the Russian Federation are the result of flamingos landing. So flamingo season has begun, and it has just begun. It is an important change in the course of this war that Ukraine invests time, money, and skills into our own Ukraine-made weapons that we can use how we know, how we need, without waiting for a permission and some totally unjust, restrictions. That's why Neptunes and Flamingos can demilitarize Russia way faster and make this world a safer place. So to sum it all up, please share these videos, or at least spread the message. It's super important. What do we have now after almost 4 years since the beginning of Putin's so-called blitzkrieg? We have dozens of Russian regions, an active war zone. We don't have fuel inside the Russian Federation, a country that was a gas station. Russia is a no-fly zone with no normal aircraft left even for Putin's oligarchs. And now more and more of its regions are spending these late autumn evenings in the darkness. And you have to remember that one of the bad things that comes with blackout is cold. We experienced that in Ukraine hundreds of times. Russia still targets our thermal plants, but now we answer. And with each day, our answer is stronger and stronger, and Russia was not prepared to defend itself as a classical bully. That's why soon we will witness its collapse. Subscribe to do that together, and please follow me on other social media like X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord, and my new Anna Danilchuk channel that is growing so fast after the recent video, once again on these problems and panic among the Russian vloggers. Check our merch shop, lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. Sending you warmest greetings from the bravest capital, Kyiv. You know I love you, and I'm so happy that you spend these evenings, these days with me, that you can travel with me. I can take you in this pocket close to my heart. You are very precious and very valuable. Please take care of yourself and know that a lot of Ukrainian people live. And thank you every day for your support, for your understanding, and for helping us spread the truth. Slava Ukraini!